The blades of the human combat ship Dauntless sliced through the void of space, chasing a faint, desperate signal as Princess Speaker's life support dwindled to mere minutes before the cold vacuum of space claimed another victim. Princess Speaker tapped at the failing control panel, a slender blue finger trailing across the flashing warning lights. An automated message droned emotionlessly. Oxygen levels critical. The Ktarian princess hung her head, tears streaking down her face as she lamented the fall of her once proud empire. Civil war and infighting had torn her civilization asunder, leaving the remnants scattered to the stars. Now, the warlord Zorg hunted the final heir to the throne, determined to crush any remaining opposition to his brutal regime. Spicer's damaged craft shuddered and lurched, the flicker of the distress beacon providing the only illumination in the cramped cockpit. She knew her time was running out. Even if she could escape Zorg's forces, her ship would soon become her icy tomb, drifting endlessly through the void. Light years away, the EDF Dauntless had received Spicer's distress signal, a faint cry for help in the depths of space. Commander Kevin Gray gripped the armrest of his captain's chair as he scanned the screens displaying Spicer's information. The universal translator flashed between symbols, then displayed the translated text. "Oh God! Life support out! Help!" Gray keyed the intercom. "Red alert! All hands to battle stations. We've got a distress signal from a Ktarian VIP, likely the princess herself. Set heading to the coordinates I'm feeding to your consoles. Maximum available speed. Let's move it, people. There's alien royalty in need of our help." The crew of the Dauntless burst into action, hands flying across consoles as the ship banked towards Speaker's failing craft. Boots clanged on the deck as damage control parties took their places and the Marines grabbed their weapons and survival gear. Gray's eyes flicked between screens, assessing the situation. Good God, the warlords already have her surrounded. Bastards don't want their prize getting away, but we're going to snatch her from their goddamn scaly claws. The Ktarian ships weren't responding to the Dauntless's hails, maintaining an ominous silence, weapons primed and aimed at the dying ship between them. They didn't seem to care if the princess lived or died, so long as Zorg could parade her body through the streets as a trophy and seize the vacant throne for himself. Gray knew this could mean war. Pulling the princess out would be a clear provocation to Zorg, who was already looking for an excuse to attack Earth's colonies. Zorg's brutal armies were legendary and his cruelty unmatched. If the warlord managed to unite the fractured Ktarian clans, it could spell the end for humanity's expansion into the stars. But Gray couldn't stand by and watch while an innocent died on his watch. Not when he had the power to make a difference. He had sworn an oath to defend the defenseless and protect the weak. That oath meant something even if the princess was an alien. He leaned forward, eyes hard. "Get me a firing solution on those hostile ships and a rescue craft prepped for a hot extract. We're going to punch right through those alien bastards, and we're damn well going to save that princess or die trying, because this is what humans do. We don't leave people behind, not now, not ever." Princess Speaker's survival could change the balance of power in the whole damn galaxy, and I'll be thrice cursed before I let her slip through our fingers. So let's bring our A-game, people. We're her last hope. Failure is not an option. Gray's eyes narrowed as the Dauntless dropped out of hyperspace, the battered ship limping towards Speaker's last known coordinates. Ahead, Princess Speaker's craft hung dead in space, a silent tomb drifting through the void. "Bulldog, Reaper, Glitch, you're with me," Gray barked. "We're boarding that ship. Get your gear and meet me in the airlock in 5. The team moved with practiced efficiency, checking their weapons and sealing their suits. As the airlock hissed open, they propelled themselves towards the stricken vessel, mag boots clanging against the hull. Glitch set to work on the airlock, fingers flying across his datapad. "I'm in. Atmosphere is stable. Gravity is offline." Gray nodded. "Reaper, take point. Bulldog, watch R6. Let's move." The team floated through the darkened corridors, suit lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Reaper held up a fist, signaling a halt. "I've got a body." Gray pushed forward, his breath catching as he saw the battered form of Princess Spiker, her once regal dress torn and stained with blood. He checked for a pulse, relief washing over him as he felt a faint flutter beneath his fingers. She's alive. Barely. We need to get her back to the Dauntless. Bulldog hefted the unconscious princess over his shoulder. I've got her, boss. Glitch tapped at his datapad, his face pale in the glow of the screen. Shit, we've got incoming. Zorg's ship's closing fast. Gray's mind raced. They were outgunned and outnumbered. But maybe they could use that to their advantage. Glitch, can you rig this ship to blow? The corporal grinned. With pleasure, sir. As Glitch set the charges, Gray outlined his plan. We'll use the princess's ship as bait, lure Zorg's fleet in close, then blow it right in their scaly faces. The Dauntless will be waiting in the debris field, ready to catch them with their pants down. The team worked quickly, planting mines and charges throughout the hull. As they retreated back to the Dauntless, Gray keyed the comm. Captain, we've got the package. Zorg's fleet is incoming. Prepare to execute Plan B. The Dauntless powered down, drifting among the wreckage of a long-dead battle. Gray and his team hunkered down in the airlock, watching the screens as Zorg's ships approached Speaker's vessel. Wait for it, Gray whispered. Wait for it. As the enemy ships moved in to capture the princess, Gray slammed his fist down on the detonator. Speaker's ship erupted in a blinding flash, debris slamming into the Qatarian vessels. The Dauntless roared to life, cannons blazing as it emerged from behind a shattered moon. The battle was fierce, the human ship weaving and dodging as it traded blows with the larger Qatarian cruisers. Consoles sparked and alarms blared as the Dauntless took hit after hit. Gray gripped the arms of his chair. Glitch, tell me you've got something up your sleeve. The corporal grinned. I thought you'd never ask. He tapped a command into his console. Singularity cannon online. Gray's eyes widened. The Singularity cannon was a prototype weapon, never tested in battle, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Fire! A beam of pure darkness lanced out from the Dauntless, piercing the heart of Zorg's flagship. For a moment nothing happened. Then the ship began to twist and warp, metal screaming as it was sucked into the miniature black hole. Punch it! Gray yelled as the Singularity began to pull the Dauntless in. The ship lurched as it jumped to hyperspace, leaving the chaos of the battle behind. In the medbay, Princess Speaker lay unconscious, her fate uncertain. Gray looked down at her, his face grim. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Light years away, Admiral Blackwell slammed his fist down on his desk, the metal buckling under the force of the blow. That goddamn cowboy, he snarled. He's gone too far this time. The Admiral keyed the comm. This is Blackwell to all EDF ships. Commander Gray is to be considered a traitor and a fugitive. Bring him in, dead or alive. And if he resists, I want that whole damn ship blown out of the sky. The Dauntless's engines thrummed and pulsed as the ship hurtled through hyperspace, racing to escape the clutches of the EDF and Zorg's forces. In the medbay, Princess Speaker's eyes fluttered open. She shot up on the bed, blue skin slick with sweat, heart pounding. Her eyes darted around the unfamiliar room. Panic rose in her chest. Where was she? What had happened? Suddenly, a tray of surgical instruments flew across the room, clattering against the wall. Speaker gasped. She hadn't meant to do that. Her psychic abilities were lashing out, reacting to her fear and confusion. Alarms blared as the ship's systems began to malfunction, lights flickering and consoles sparking. Gray burst into the medbay, ducking just in time to avoid a flying scalpel that embedded itself in the wall behind him. Princess Speaker, it's okay. You're safe. We're not going to hurt you. Speaker's eyes focused on Gray, recognition dawning. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. The floating objects in the room settled back onto their surfaces. I apologize. I didn't mean to. Where am I? Gray approached slowly, hands held up in a placating gesture. You're aboard the EDF Dauntless. We received your distress signal and managed to get you out before Zorg's forces could capture you. How are you feeling? Spiker rubbed her temples, wincing. I've been better. Commander, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Zorg, he's after something. Something that could give him the power to control the entire galaxy. Gray frowned. What do you mean? The Scepter of Zalthor. It's an ancient Katarian artifact imbued with immense psychic energy. Whoever wields it can bend others to their will, control their minds. Zorg believes that with the scepter and me under his control, he'll be unstoppable. And he's right. Gray's blood ran cold. Mind control on a galactic scale. The implications were horrifying. Where is this scepter now? Hidden in a secret vault on my homeworld. But Zorg will tear the planet apart to find it. Gray's mind raced. They had to get to the scepter before Zorg did. But with the EDF and Zorg's forces on their tail, they needed a place to regroup and come up with a plan. Commander, I think I have an idea. Glitch's voice crackled over the comm. The Pyrax Nebula, it's a nasty piece of work. Radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, the works. But that's exactly why it's perfect. The nebula's properties will hide us from sensors, both ours and theirs. We can lay low, make repairs, and figure out our next move. Gray nodded. It was a risk, but what choice did they have? Do it. Plot a course for the Pyrax Nebula, maximum speed. As the Dauntless navigated the treacherous nebula, the ship shuddered and groaned, the hull creaking under the strain. Radiation storms buffeted the ship, causing systems to flicker and fail. But Glitch was right. The nebula's unique properties were masking their signature, keeping them hidden from prying eyes. But Zorg was not so easily deterred. His flagship, equipped with advanced sensors and shielding, picked up the faintest trace of the Dauntless's engine emissions. Like a shark scenting blood in the water, Zorg's ship honed in on their location, closing in for the kill. What followed was a deadly game of cat and mouse, the Dauntless using the nebula's hazards to evade and outmaneuver their pursuers. They ducked into radiation storms, using the intense energy to disrupt Zorg's sensors. They skirted the edge of gravitational anomalies, letting the warped space-time pull Zorg's ships off course. In a brief moment of respite, Gray found Spica in the observation deck, staring out at the swirling colors of the nebula. "I never wanted this, you know," she said softly. "The crown, the responsibility. I was happy living a simple life. But when my father died, I had no choice. My people needed me. My people." Gray placed a hand on her shoulder. "I understand. The weight of leadership, of knowing that others depend on you. It's a heavy burden to bear. But you don't have to bear it alone. My crew and I, we've got your back. We'll stop Zorg, together." Spica turned to face him, a small smile on her lips. "Thank you, Commander. Watch out!" The ship rocked violently as an explosion tore through the hull. Alarms blared and sparks flew, as Gray and Spica were thrown to the ground. Zorg's flagship had found them, its advanced sensors piercing through the nebula's interference. A vicious battle erupted, the Dauntless weaving and dodging as it returned fire. But Zorg's ship was too strong, its weapons tearing through the Dauntless's shields like tissue paper. "Shields at 20%, we can't take much more of this," Glitch shouted over the chaos. Gray gritted his teeth. They needed to do something fast or they were all dead. His eyes fell on a nearby radiation storm, its energy readings off the charts. It was insane, suicidal even. But it was their only chance. "Glitch, divert all power to the engines and shields. We're going in." In where?" "The storm. We're going to use it to overload their sensors and weapons." "Are you crazy? That much radiation will fry us too." "We'll just have to hope our shields hold longer than theirs. Do it." The Dauntless plunged into the heart of the storm, the ship shaking and shuddering as the radiation battered its shields. On the bridge, consoles exploded, and crew members were thrown about like ragdolls. But Gray's gambit worked. Zorg's ship, caught in the storm's fury, began to falter. Its sensors overloaded, its weapons systems fried. With a final burst of energy, the Dauntless broke free of the storm, limping away from the crippled enemy ship. But the victory was short-lived. The Dauntless was in bad shape, its systems failing, its crew injured. They were adrift and alone, with Zorg's forces still out there, searching for them. Gray helped Speaker to her feet, the two of them surveying the damaged bridge. "We have to get to your homeworld fast. The scepter is our only hope of stopping Zorg now." Speaker nodded, her face grim. "But how? The ship is barely holding together as it is." Gray's jaw tightened. "We'll find a way, we have to. The fate of the galaxy depends on it." The Dauntless limped on through the nebula, its crew racing against time to repair the ship and reach Speaker's homeworld. But with each passing moment, Zorg drew closer, his forces closing in like a noose around their necks. They were battered, bruised, and running out of time. But they weren't beaten yet. Not by a long shot. The Dauntless drifted through the void, its hull battered and scorched, systems flickering in and out. In the dim emergency lighting, Gray and his team worked feverishly to bring the ship back from the brink. Glitch tore through the guts of the ship, sparks flying as he spliced wires and rerouted power. "I've got propulsion back online, but just barely. Life support is holding for now, but we're not going to be fighting any battles in this bucket," Glitch reported, wiping sweat and grime from his brow. Gray nodded, jaw tight. "It'll have to do. Zorg's not going to give us time for a full repair job." He gathered the team around the flickering hollow table. "Listen up. We're in no shape to take on Zorg's forces head-on, but we can't let him get his hands on that scepter, so we're going to have to get creative." The hologram shifted, displaying the Qatarian homeworld. "Spiker, you said the scepter is hidden in a secret vault here, right?" The princess nodded. "Yes, in the ancient catacombs beneath the capital city." "Then that's our target, but we can't risk leading Zorg right to it, so we're going to split up. Reaper, Glitch, you stay with the Dauntless. Keep her flying, and keep Zorg's attention on you. Buy us as much time as you can." Glitch grinned. "We'll give 'em a show they won't forget." "Bulldog, Speaker, you're with me. We'll take the stealth shuttle down to the surface and make for the vault. With any luck, we'll be in and out before Zorg knows what hit him." As the shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, Gray couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The capital city was too quiet, the streets deserted. "I don't like this," Bulldog muttered, his hand resting on his blaster. "Where is everyone?" Speaker frowned. "Zorg, he must have already made his move." They landed the shuttle in a secluded alley, the ancient stone walls rising up around them. Speaker led the way, navigating the twisting paths with the ease of familiarity. But as they approached the entrance to the catacombs, a squad of Zorg's elite guards stepped out from the shadows, energy weapons leveled at their chests. "Well, well, look what we have here," the lead guard sneered. "The little princess come to lead us right to the prize." Gray and Bulldog reacted instantly, diving for cover as blaster bolts filled the air. They returned fire, the narrow alley lit by the flash of energy weapons. But Zorg's guards were good, their armor absorbing the shots as they advanced. Speaker leaped into the fray, a pair of shimmering energy blades materializing in her hands. She moved like a dancer, her blades weaving a deadly pattern as she cut through the enemy ranks. Gray and Bulldog fought beside her, blasters barking, fists and feet flying in a desperate melee. They fought their way to the vault door, the ancient stone splashed with fresh blood. Speaker placed her hand on the lock, the mechanism glowing as it recognized her biometric signature. The massive door swung open, revealing a small chamber, its walls lined with intricate carvings. And there, standing in the center of the room, was Zorg. The scepter of Zalthor glowed in his grasp, pulsing with malevolent energy. "You're too late," he gloated. "The scepter is mine, and with it the galaxy will kneel before me." He raised the scepter, a wave of psychic force slamming into Gray and his team. They staggered, minds reeling under the assault. Zorg laughed, the sound cold and cruel. "Did you really think you could stop me? I am Zorg, the Conqueror. I am invincible." Gray gritted his teeth, forcing himself back to his feet. Beside him, Bulldog and Speaker did the same, their faces etched with determination. "You're not invincible," Gray spat. "You're just another tyrant, and tyrants always fall." They charged, energy blades and blaster bolts flashing. Zorg met them with the scepter, the ancient artifact unleashing blasts of raw psychic power. The chamber shook with the force of their battle, stone cracking and shattering. But for all their skill and courage, Grey and his team were outmatched. The scepter's power was too great, Zorg's mastery of it too complete. One by one they were driven back, battered and bleeding. Bulldog staggered, his blaster knocked from his hand. Zorg loomed over him, the scepter raised for a killing blow, but Bulldog lunged forward, tackling the warlord in a desperate grab. They grappled, wrestling for control of the scepter. "Grey!" Bulldog shouted. "Catch!" With a final effort, he wrenched the scepter from Zorg's grasp and tossed it across the chamber. Grey dove, fingers closing around the ancient metal. But Zorg was on him in an instant, a blade of pure psychic energy forming in his hand. Grey rolled, the blade missing him by inches. He came up swinging, the scepter glowing in his grasp. The two artifacts met with a blinding flash, psychic energy crackling and arcing between them. Grey felt the scepter's power surge through him, raw and uncontrollable. He could feel it tearing at his mind, threatening to consume him. With a roar of defiance, he pushed back against the tide, focusing all his will on a single desperate thought. Protect! The scepter pulsed, a wave of energy exploding outward. Zorg screamed as the psychic blast enveloped him, his body dissolving into motes of light. The chamber shook, cracks racing up the walls as the ancient stone crumbled. "We have to go," Speaker shouted, grabbing Grey's arm. "The whole place is coming down." They ran, stumbling over the debris as the catacombs collapsed around them. They burst out into the open air, the city shaking beneath their feet. In the sky above, a second sun blossomed, bright and terrible. The Dauntless, wreathed in flames, plunged toward the ground, a trail of smoke and fire in its wake. Grey watched in horror as the ship exploded, the shockwave flattening buildings and shattering windows. Reaper, Glitch. They were gone, sacrificing themselves to buy the others time. Grey felt their loss like a knife in his gut, a pain that would never fully heal. In the days that followed, the true scope of their victory became clear. Zorg's army, leaderless and demoralized, fell into disarray. The Catarian clans, free from the warlord's oppression, rallied around Spisa, hailing her as the rightful empress. The Earth Defense Fleet arrived, too late to change the outcome but not too late to bear witness. Admiral Blackwell, his face lined with grief and regret, posthumously cleared Grey and his team of all charges, hailing them as heroes of the galaxy. For Grey, the accolades rang hollow. He had won, but the cost had been too high. The faces of his fallen friends haunted his dreams, their sacrifices a weight he would carry for the rest of his days. In the end, he walked away from it all. The medals, the titles, the glory. He had fought his war and paid the price. Now he would find his own path, a way to honor the memory of those he had lost. But he would not forget. He would never forget the bravery of his team, the bonds forged in the heat of battle. They had saved the galaxy, and in doing so, they had become something more than soldiers. They had become legends. The years slipped by, the galaxy slowly healing from the wounds inflicted by Zorg's brutal campaign. On the Tarian homeworld, Empress Spica worked day and night to rebuild her shattered empire, her determination unwavering in the face of the daunting task ahead. But even as new cities rose from the ashes and the Tarian people began to find hope again, shadows gathered on the horizon. In the darkened halls of abandoned fortresses, Catarian warlords met in secret, their eyes glinting with the old hunger for power and conquest. At their head stood General Kravox, Zorg's former right hand, his face a twisted mask of scars and hate. "The Empress is weak," he snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "She would have us bow and scrape before the humans, like dogs begging for scraps. But we are Catarians. We do not beg. We take what is ours by blood and by right." The assembled warlords nodded in agreement, their fists clenched and their hearts filled with the desire for vengeance. They plotted and schemed, gathering their forces in the hidden corners of the empire, waiting for the moment to strike. But they had not counted on Commander Kevin Grey. Now serving as Speaker's personal advisor and bodyguard, the former EDF officer had lost none of his edge. His eyes and ears were everywhere, and it wasn't long before whispers of the growing conspiracy reached his ears. He strode into the Empress's chambers, his face grim. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head, "I have troubling news. It appears that some of your subjects are not as loyal as they appear." Spiker looked up from the report she had been reading, her brow furrowed. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice firm. As Gray laid out the evidence he had gathered, Spiker's expression hardened. "Cravox," she spat. "I should have known he would not accept defeat so easily." "We must act quickly," Gray said. "If we can lure the rebels into a trap, we can crush this insurgency before it grows too strong." Speaker nodded, her mind already racing with plans and strategies. Together they worked long into the night, plotting the downfall of those who would threaten the hard-won peace. But even as they prepared to strike against the rebels, a new danger reared its head. Gray was hunched over a console, reviewing security protocols, when a message flashed across the screen. It was marked with the highest level of urgency, and as he read the contents, his blood ran cold. The scepter of Zalthor, the ancient artifact that had nearly brought the galaxy to its knees, had been stolen from its vault on Earth. The culprits were a rogue human faction known as the Shadow Hand, led by none other than Admiral Blackwell's former protégé, Captain Ilara Voss. Gray's mind reeled with the implications. With the scepter's power at her command, Voss could bend entire worlds to her will, establishing human supremacy over the galaxy. And if she succeeded, the fragile peace between humanity and the Ktarians would be shattered forever. But there was more. As Gray dug deeper into the Shadow Hand's activities, a chilling realization dawned on him. It had been Voss who had leaked the location of the Dauntless to Zorg all those years ago, setting in motion the chain of events that had led to the deaths of Reaper and Glitch. Rage boiled up inside him, a white-hot fury that threatened to consume him entirely. He had trusted Voss, had believed in the cause they fought for, but she had betrayed them all, sacrificing his friends for her own twisted ambitions. Gray's fists clenched, his eyes hard as steel. He would make Voss pay for what she had done. He would reclaim the scepter and bring the Shadow Hand to justice, no matter the cost. But even as he made his vow, alarms began to blare throughout the palace. The rebel warlords had launched their coup, their forces storming the gates with all the fury of a hurricane. Gray raced through the halls, his blaster already in his hand. He burst into the throne room just as the rebels smashed through the doors, General Cravox at their head. "Your reign ends now, Empress," the warlord sneered, his weapon leveled at Speaker's chest. "The true Ktarians will never bow to a weakling like you." But Spiker did not cower. She rose from her throne, an energy blade shimmering to life in her hand. "You forget, General," she said, her voice ringing with power. "I am no weakling. I am the Empress of the Ktarian people, and I will not yield to traitors like you." And with that she leapt forward, her blade clashing against Cravox's in a shower of sparks. Gray was at her side in an instant, his own weapon spitting fire as he cut down rebel after rebel. They fought like demons, their bodies a blur of motion as they danced through the chaos of battle. The throne room became a whirlwind of blood and death, the air thick with the stench of burning flesh and ozone. But even as they fought, Gray could see that the odds were against them. The rebels were too many, their numbers swelling with every passing moment. And Spiker, for all her skill and bravery, was tiring, her movements growing sluggish and her breaths coming in ragged gasps. It was then that Cravox struck, his blade slipping past Speaker's guard and plunging into her chest. The Empress staggered back, her eyes wide with shock and pain. She fell to her knees, blood pooling on the floor beneath her. Gray let out a roar of anguish and rage, his vision turning red as he charged at Cravox. The warlord barely had time to raise his blade before Gray was on him, his own weapon flashing in a blur of deadly strikes. They traded blows back and forth, their faces contorted with hatred and fury. But Gray was relentless, his grief and anger fueling his every move. With a final, savage blow, he sent Kravox's head tumbling from his shoulders, the warlord's body crumpling to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. The rebels, seeing their leader fall, scattered like leaves before a storm. Grey stood panting amidst the carnage, his eyes wild and his heart pounding. But as the adrenaline faded, a new horror gripped him. He raced to Speaker's side, cradling her broken body in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale and clammy. "Hold on," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Just hold on. I'll get you help." But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The wound was too deep, the damage too severe. Speaker looked up at him, her eyes filled with a strange mix of pain and peace. "Grey," she murmured, her voice barely audible. You must go. The scepter. Voss, you must stop her." Grey shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I can't leave you," he said. "I won't." But Speaker gripped his hand with the last of her strength. "You must," she insisted. "The fate of the galaxy, it rests on you now. Promise me you'll make this right." And with a final shuddering breath, the Empress of the Tarian people passed from the world, her hand going limp in Grey's grasp. For a long moment, Grey knelt there, his body shaking with grief and rage. But as he looked down at Speaker's face, so peaceful in death, a new resolve hardened within him. He rose to his feet, his eyes burning with a cold, implacable fire. He would honor Speaker's final wish. He would hunt down Voss and the Shadow Hand, reclaim the scepter of Zalthor, and make them pay for all the lives they had destroyed. But first he had a promise to keep. He gathered Speaker's body in his arms and carried her from the throne room, his steps heavy with the weight of his sorrow and his duty. He would give her the funeral she deserved, the funeral of a true empress. And then he would set out on his final mission, a mission of justice, of vengeance, and of the hard-earned wisdom that comes only from the scars of war and loss. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.